Okay, so let's start by going over number 14, plant names. So I have that open here. So make sure you're following along. Our questions here are number 1, what is a botanical plant name and how is it different from a plant's common name? Number 2 says, what does a plant's genus name tell us about the plant? Number 3 says, what does the plant's species name tell us about the plant? And number 4, the yellow Banks rose is the common name for the Rosa Banksiae. What is the plant's genus and species name based on its botanical name, which is this? Okay, so let's open this up. And we'll read the first paragraph. Most of the time we refer to plants by their common names. And if we would use them, or hang on, I've got people still coming in. Okay, and if we could use them all the time, they're easy to remember, easy to pronounce, and they're familiar to us. Still, there are times when common names aren't good enough. Some plants have no common name, and there are times when common names change from region to region. There are even cases where a common name for a plant in one region is the same as a common name for a different plant in another region. Lastly, you may need to look up information on a plant only to find the reference book has plants listed by their so-called Latin names. That's when you'll need to use the proper botanical plant names. So for our answer here, you say that the botanical name is a plant's original plant name that gives more information about the plant, while the plant's common name is the name that it is often referred to in a specific region. I'm gonna make a copy of this. Okay. All right, so let's move on here. Okay, so the botanical plant naming system is called a binomial classification system, which is a big phrase that means that the plants have 2-word names. The first word picks out the plant's genus, the generic group of plants that your plant belongs to. Here's an example. Maple trees represented by the genus name Acer or Acer. Okay, so basically what we can say about the plant's genus name is that it picks out the plant's genus, a generic group of plants that your plant belongs to. So it tells us the generic group of plants that belongs to. Okay, so now let's figure out what the species name tells us. The second word identifies the plant species. A species is a subset of a genus, which includes all the plants of a particular kind. And they give us an example here, all sugar maples, or the Latin Acer saccharum, I'm not sure how to say that. And the species name will be the uncapitalized adjective. The species name is usually descriptive in that it will tell you something about a particular habit or trait that the plant may have. So we can say here that the species name will give you more information about a particular habit or trait of the plant. Okay, so let's scroll down to where it gives us the example of how to quickly identify the genus and species names of a botanical plant name. So here we have an example, and it's Juniperus horizontalis. And this would be its common name right here, is the creeping juniper. So this is its botanical name. So we want to figure out what parts what parts of the name is its genus and which part is its species. So it's telling us here that the first word is the genus and the second word is the species. So let's go back to our example where it says that the botanical name that we're trying to break apart is the Rosa banksiae. So based on our example, we can determine that the genus name of this would be Rosa, oops, and the species name of it would be Banksiae. Okay, so that sums that up. Does anybody have any questions about this lesson before I move on? Plant names? All right, I'm gonna move on then. Okay, so go ahead and open up the vegetable planting guide activity that you were supposed to do yesterday. Okay. So our instructions here are different than usual. So it says to look at the planting guide on the next page to see what plants are good to plant each month. Pay attention to the planting period guide to understand what the colors mean. So basically what the legend is on the top left. After reviewing the chart, respond to the questions below. Okay, so before we look at the chart, let's take a second. Let's just do each question one by one. And I want to hear what you guys have to say by sharing in the chat what you got. So for number one, it says, what months appear to be the best times to plant vegetables overall? And remember that this planting guide that we're looking at is for Southern California specifically. So what were some of the months that you guys found? Okay, so let's take a look at the guide. And if you recall, the dark green is what's considered optimal, and the light green is acceptable, while the yellow is not recommended. So basically what we're doing here is we're trying to figure out which months would be good times to grow things. So ultimately what I'm looking for is the columns that have the most green. So, okay, so Ellie is saying that it would be October, November, December, good. So we have lots of green in the October, November, December. We also have a lot of green in January, though it does start to look like it's tapering. Well, it looks like it might be about even, January and February. So I would say, yeah, anywhere from October to February would be good times to plant things. And if you think about it, it makes sense because this is, what is the season I'm thinking? Winter. This is winter, and the season that follows winter is spring. And spring is when you usually get a good bounty, right? You're able to harvest lots of things. Okay, so yeah, this would be anywhere from October to February. Okay, number two, what months appear to be the worst times to plant vegetables overall? What do you guys think? What is the worst time? Good, thanks, Giovanni. So Giovanni said July. So yeah, July is a good example of a bad time to plant. Look at all this yellow. Not a lot of good things to plant in July. But I'd probably also accept, you know, anything from July to probably September is also not a good time. So I'm gonna say July to September. Okay, so number 3 says, what plants would be considered optimal or good to grow this month? So in October, what are some examples of things that would be really good to grow in October? You don't have to list them all, just a couple. This is vegetable planting guide, what we did yesterday. Good. Beets would be an example of something that we could grow right now. What else? What are some other things? And Giovanni knows that because he looked at beets, he ran it over to October, and he could see that it's green. But there's lots of other things too, right? There's broccoli, there's Brussels sprouts, there's cabbage. I mean, we could go on and on and on. Okay, and finally, number 4, why do you think that so few plants are recommended to grow in the summer months? Like we said before, anywhere from July, August, September, June. Why are these bad months to grow things? Good, thanks. Because it's really hot. Thank you. Yeah, it's really hot in the summer. So if you plant something, especially right when you plant it, it's going to be really delicate and it might not be able to survive that heat. Okay. All right, so this wraps up the vegetable planting guide activity that you were supposed to do yesterday, number 15. So the activity today is number 16. You're going to start learning about companion planting. So again, this is not going to be something that you recognize from the website that we've been working on. This is an article. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this. This is an article that you will read about the process of companion planting, which is essentially just the strategic planting of certain plants in the same area because they benefit each other by doing so. So you're going to respond to the questions. What is companion planting? Number 2, what are some of the benefits of companion planting? Number 3, how do some plants cause negative effects on other plants? And why would a gardener want to use a companion planting chart? Okay, so this is today's activity. If you have already turned this in, or if you finished this early and you want to move ahead, there's part 2 that's going to be assigned on Monday that you could start. You can also work on the study guide that I posted for you. So the study guide questions, again, just like the last module, are going to be the same questions that you see on the quiz. Okay? All right, so that wraps up everything. You are, just a reminder, today focusing on number 16. Go ahead and start.